There he goes again.
Yeah, baby!
My little buddy here is exceedingly excited because he just switched to Central Pacific Bank.
It's epic!
Without CPB, I wouldn't have a leg to stand on.
All the places we can go.
You know, your family traditions, they pass down and they pass down. They don't just start when you're born. You get passed down all the centuries of history and all the centuries of practice that's given to you. And so it's a continuum. You just start continuing on it.
Aloha guys, welcome back to Uncut Hawaii, the podcast where we get to interview Hawaii's most interesting and innovative creators, entrepreneurs, and change makers. I'm Kolby, and I'm super stoked to have Micah Kamohoali'i. I've been wanting to have Micah on this podcast for so long, and we finally got to connect. Yay! Micah is a Kumu Hula, a designer, entrepreneur, business owner, historian, cultural advisor, etc., etc., etc. Well, I was wondering, when people ask you, like, what do you do? What do you say?
I knew you was going to ask me that question for some reason. I don't know. I always actually introduce myself as a Kumu Hula first, I think, because that's sort of the foundation of who I am. And so when they ask, what do you do? I usually just say, I'm a Kumu Hula. Mm-hmm. And then later comes, I'm a fashion designer. Mm-hmm. And then it depends on how long the conversation goes. Next, everything else comes out.
Yeah.
I actually went to school.
And who it's with.
Yeah, exactly. That too. I actually went to school for a whole bunch of things. I got a degree in theater and performing arts. Went to University of Southern California. And then I ended up getting a degree in archaeology. So I went and got my master's in archaeology.
Wow.
I have a few BAs and a master's in archaeology.
Wow. I did not know
Yeah,
that.
kind of odd. Yeah, people just blow their minds sometimes because it's opposite ends of like the spectrum.
It is, but it also, like, in what you do, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, especially, I can see with the theater side, like, your runway shows are, like, very theatrical and shows are, so that makes sense.
Yeah, I think archaeology happened because I'm from a small town, and I saw change fast in town. And I saw buildings get built in pastures that I knew had storied things underneath them, that there were graves or there were heiau or something was there. And so, people always go, somebody needs to become an archaeologist and go in and fix this. And so my family has always been the family that says, we never said that, somebody should do it. We just did it. We're the family that became the one that did it. So I went to school and got a second BA in anthropology. And then, actually, that was my third BA, anthropology. And then, because I felt like getting a master's in anthropology or archaeology, you needed to have the matching BA for it. And so I just I said, I'll just do it. So at least I fully understand what I'm doing. And then I got an archaeology degree, and then I opened up an archaeological firm and specifically just to do environmental impact statements, cultural impact statements, EAs, all of those things just in my own town. I wasn't for hire anywhere else. It was just so that if things was being built, I could weigh in on it and say, this is actually a grave site, or this is actually some rare heiau that Waimea has a heiau that was built by wahine, and that's not a very common thing to have heiau built by women, and all women only. And it was used for lapa'au, for midwifery, all those things. So I thought, what if somebody puts a building there and we lose all that history? And so I just kind of felt like I needed to defend my own town, so I got the degree for it.
That's so, I didn't even know this about you. I'm like, wait, what? You have an archaeology and anthropology degree? What in the world?
I hired all my hula students to be all the workers in. It worked.
I love it.
We danced about it, and then we did studies on it, mapping, and then, so it was like a full circle, because we studied it in an archaeological sense, but we also studied it in a hula and a Hawaiian sense as well, and it became our practice. So,
okay, so let's rewind a little bit. I know you talked about your family a little bit and being from Waimea. So you grew up in Waimea. Your ohana's from Waimea. and they were historians
Yeah,
and
so my
artists.
my family is from Waimea for I usually introduce myself and say for 100 generations. And so I usually tell them I've been living here for the last 2,000 years and kind of throws people off. But, because I feel like you progress as your family traditions, they pass down and they pass down. They don't just start when you're born. You get passed down all the centuries of history and all the centuries of practice that's given to you. And so it's a continuum. You just start continuing on it. And so, but my family has been from Waimea forever. My grandfather's family were Paniolo. They're descendants of one of the lines of Kamehameha. Same with Papa Ikua Purdy, although many Waimea families are descendants of Kamehameha. And yeah, my grandfather's family is also from Waipio Valley. So plenty connection down there. And so I was raised in a small town that probably had about maybe, I usually say 400 people in town, but it was under 1,000. And so I rode my horse to school.
Are you serious?
Well, so we had buses, but the buses, I live in Hawaiian homes in Pu'ukapu, in the farm lot areas. And the bus only came into Kuhio Village, which is the sort of, that's where the roads was. There was no roads in the back where we lived. So we were like in the boonies, which now we're like, I feel like we're in the town because now the homes go all the way back to Mauna Kea. So we're like in the beginning now. But when I was young, we were in the boonies. And so my father used to tell us that my father's a policeman all of my life and in Waimea. And so he left to go work early. My mom had to work. And so we had to wake up and catch the bus. And the bus felt like miles away because it was in Kuhio Village. And I missed it almost every morning. And so when Dad would come home,
it's probably like a good mile,
like
and
a quarter of a mile.
A quarter of a
Yeah, it's a quarter of a mile. Maybe a quarter of a mile. Maybe a little bit more. But he came home one time. I was still home, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I missed the bus, and I don't know. You guys were working." So he's like, "You better make it on the bus. You'll get cracks next time." And so my cousin, I told, "Oh my God, my dad's gonna lick me if I don't get to school. I just can't make it on the bus." She goes, "That's why you have your horse out there. Saddle the horse." I was like, "Oh, I never thought of it." So me and my cousin started saddling our horse and riding our horses to school. Whenever we missed the bus, saddle the horse. Nobody noticed because the pastures were so vast that nobody noticed one horse was missing. So we would saddle the horse, go to school, and the first time we did it, we tied up our horses next to where the bikes are. So it was like, the bike rack. So you had
Right
bike,
next to the
horse, bike. And then the principal called us into the office and said, "You can't bring animals to school." And we said, "Oh, we didn't bring our dogs to school."
Yeah.
They're like,
That's
"No."
my transportation.
Yeah. They're like, "No, you brought a horse." We're like, "Oh, that's not an animal. That's our vehicle." That's how we got to school. People ride bikes. We had horsepower. So eventually we just started tying them in the hitching posts outside, or we just let them in the pasture and then rounded them up and then rode them home. So it was
That's
small,
so
very
funny.
small and simple town. And so, that was kind of my upbringing. And so my family have always been taro farmers in Waipio, Paniolo in Waimea. But, small towns, you value so much things and your resources. You have to create your own resources with your neighbors, with what you got, and you make the best of what you got. So I think those kind of communities become historians in some sort of way. All the small towns I know on Hawaii Island, there's such great resources in those towns. Those little towns have such knowledgeable people, historians, and people that all the little old things made such a big deal to them. My grandparents was a stickler for genealogy. Made sure we knew our genealogy and what ali'is we came from and what hardworking families we came from, what they did, what their hana was, what did they do in their life so that we knew what to perpetuate and what to practice. And so, it was something that was our life. It was just
That's
it.
amazing. I just recently came across our family genealogy, but it only goes back to 1600. Which I feel like your family probably goes way before that.
When I was 9, I was, before 9, I was taught to chant our genealogy from the first migrations. And
Wow.
so my grandparents sort of taught me all the names in the family and taught me the chanting styles to recite all this, what we call ko'ihonua, or a genealogical chant from them all the way down to us. And so it was great. It was nice to learn all of it. But then I started to become sort of the funeral chanter.
Oh.
which when you're 9, I think I was 9 when I did the first funeral chanting, and it was like, okay, grandma's like, get over there, call the ancestors because uncle passed. You need to call all the names in the family to come and take uncle with them to the skies of Wakia, this whole big thing. Okay, and then everybody started dying, and I was always there to have to chant everybody's genealogy, and I just thought, oh, this sucks. Like, I'm not chanting at Mary Monarch. I'm chanting at funerals where everybody's screaming and crying, and I'm like chanting for half an hour genealogy, asking the ancestors to come and take them to the skies of Wakia. And so I'm like, after about the 10th one, it just started to feel like it was dead.
Literally.
Yeah.
Well, so was it the same chant that you would chant every time? Mm-hmm. So from like the first
migration.
Yeah.
So I would change I guess all the way. The genealogy was split towards when it got to the more present because it would change to where the person had passed. Mm-hmm. So I would chant the genealogy down to them directly. So I would switch, and I had to learn the last sort of names in their direct line, so I could chant directly to them. But
wow, and it would take you like a half an hour.
Yeah.
Because like the Kumu Lipo, they say it takes like days.
Couple days, maybe.
Couple days, yeah.
Yeah, it would take a while, and then it kind of felt like when I learned about I saw a movie, I forget what movie it was, but they hired criers, people that would wail at the funeral. Mm-hmm. They were like professional wailers. I started to feel like I was the professional funeral chanter. And I thought, this is kind of junk. I mean, it's cool. I know all the names in the genealogy and all that. But okay, I'm only like 9, 10, 11 chanting at everybody's funeral.
Yeah.
One time I wanted to throw everybody off, so I changed the chanting style. And I started to recite all the names because maybe I was just trying to get more jiggy with it. And so
oh my God. I have not heard that.
I changed the chanting style to be a little bit more nasal. In this style called Nonolo, so it all kind of went like it was all like in the nose. Okay. And I did all the genealogy like that. When I was finished, one of my aunties came up to me and said, I didn't know you know the Pake side of the family. And you can chant in Chinese. And I was like, oh my God. I said, I know it kind of sounded Chinese, but actually, Auntie, that was all Hawaiian names I said. I just did a different style. And I don't know how to chant in Chinese, in Pake, but mahalo.
Just turn on that Chinese accent and make it nasally.
Yeah.
Well, I was watching something recently because I'm kind of like researching about Mo'okuauhau. And I was came across this one auntie who was saying that, when you say an ancestor's name, so like what you're doing, it's not just remembering them, but it's like activating them. Yeah, it's like activating their power, their mana. So
my grandmother used to tell us, "Ika olelo ke ola, ika olelo ka make." In your olelo or in your speech, there's life, and in your speech, there's also death. And the things that you say may cause one or the other to happen. And so my grandma used to say, "You say what you mean, and you mean what you say." She also used to tell us that be careful how you respond when you're mad. Because things happen. But in that same token, we knew that when we chanted the names of the family, it brought some sort of ola to them, some sort of life, and as well as an ala, so some sort of awakening. So an ola and an ala to them when we said their names, an awakening and some sort of life to that ancestor and maybe the whole family line. And it's the same when you give a child a family name that sometimes people look in the tree and go, oh, these are nice names. Let's just give them to the children. But it's good to maybe find out about that person first because they carry that, not just the mana of the name, but they carry, the name comes with that person's identity as well. And so it always was, it's basically that. It's bringing ola or bringing life to all of not just our inoa, but our whole family line and lineage. So having to chant genealogy that far became such a big kuleana.
Yeah.
From migrations, from Kahiki all the way. So my chant started off with almost what sounded like Tahitian names. And then it turned into Hawaiian names and having to chant all those long genealogies. Big kuleana, but I wish people was alive, when I'm doing it, not just the dead in the funeral. But
yeah, well, that's special. I'm sure like that kind of power gets carried down to you and to the current living family. So
totally.
Okay, so growing up in Waimea, going to Kanu, going to Honoka'a, and then going into continued your education over and over and over again.
Yeah, yeah.
And then at what point did you like start your halau, or like what kind of led you to that?
So I've danced school all my life since I was a little boy. Maybe 3-4 years old, I started dancing, and my grandmother's family were Kumu Hula, so they come from a long line of Kumu Hula, and some of their lines go to Kumu Hula on Maui. My tutu was in Opanui, and they have lineage in Kalakawa's court, and one of our kupuna was Kumu Hula in King Kalakawa's court. And so it's something we grew up with. Chanting was a form of prayer in our family. Dancing hula was just, I mean, it wasn't a special hobby. It was a kuleana, and you did it. I felt like we never was given the chance to decide what we wanted to do.
Like you're just like, going to dance.
Yeah, you're gonna chant.
Get
You're
up
gonna
and
dance.
yeah.
That's what it is. I mean, if you wanted to paint something, then that's your opportunity. You can be an artist.
Yeah.
But all the other things, you just got to do.
Yeah.
Like there was no chance that we could say, oh, I think I want to be something different. No. You're gonna be this. So
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate it now. When we're
Yeah.
young, you're like, oh my gosh, we were just voluntold what to do. And so when we got older, I'm like, oh, thank God our grandparents and our parents made us do this, because
Yeah.
we see the value in all of it now. And especially when other families don't have it. When other families, they said, oh, we never spoke Hawaiian in our house. I'm like, well, thank God we did. Like, thank God our grandparents that we used Hawaiian words, that there was Olelo Hawaii spoken in the house, that we learned all these things from baby time. So,
That was just your normal. Like you didn't realize that how special it was at the time.
Totally. Yeah. So, I mean, hula, I think I became a Kumu Hula young, very young. So, one of my great grand aunt, she was alive. She was about 100 something, and she wanted to pass on all of this history, being a Kumu Hula, and have me go through uniki, which is that ceremony to become a graduation to become Kumu Hula, and I was young. I think I was about 20 years old, and so I thought it was too soon. But she said, no, you need to learn all this. You have to go through all kinds of tests and then become a Kumu Hula. And so
when you're
go
20?
through through a whole ceremony. My mom thought it would go to her because she was a dancer all her life. But the kupuna in our family said, no, it's going to him. So my mom became my first student. I was her student, actually, when I was little. My mom is the one who taught me all the foundational chants from Kavika, Lili Ue, Nolune Kahalikai Okama'alewa, all the main sort of introduction chants. My mom taught them all to me as it was taught to her. And so when I became a Kumu Hula, it was odd to have my mother as like my first student and in the front line. But I now just went through a uniki with them to become ho'opa'a. So that's where they all now are drumming. They all are sitting next to me with ipu and pahu. And so honored and still awed, but my mom is in that class, so she became ho'opa'a. She had to go through all of this. And she's in her 60s now, so she had to live that whole traditional way of becoming Kumu Hula, I guess.
Yeah.
Spend all your life as a dancer and then become Kumu Hula. Where it happened earlier for me.
Yeah, because that's normally like the path, right?
Yeah, it's like kind of when you get broken knees, then you become Kumu Hula. Like when everything's sore and you just can't kaholo anymore. Then they're like, okay, I think it's time for you to be a Kumu.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what's happening to my mom, but it skipped me, and I think it and it's odd. So when our kupuna first approached me and said, you're going to go through this rigorous training with me and you're going to become Kumu Hula, I first said, oh, I don't want to. Like, I want to dance.
Yeah.
Like, I still want to dance.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, when you're a Kumu Hula, you can dance all you want. Like, but you have to, because I'm going to pass and you need to take this. I'm like, oh, okay. So I still didn't dance, but maybe I found opportunities to dance a little bit I wanted to be in the front center line and still dancing till I was broken knees and then become Kumu Hula. But
no choice. No
yeah,
choices.
no choice, yeah. Still the voluntold, but yeah.
Okay, so wow, I didn't realize. So you've been Kumu Hula for a
while, yeah.
For a while. And then
my halau is this year will make 20 years.
Wow.
So 20 years as me being the kumu.
Wow.
So of the halau, I think I was Kumu Hula a little bit Yeah, 20 years. This is
Wow.
the 20th anniversary.
Wow, congratulations.
I-
Do you
I-
have something planned, like a big
I don't even know. I think it actually started in January, but then, or January would have been 20 years. But I
Yeah.
told myself, oh, maybe I'll wait till my birthday, which is in June, and just have like a celebration with the halal. Or,
Yeah.
I don't know. Most people didn't know that we were a halal in the beginning stages, because we only danced like in the mountains. Like we did ceremonies, a lot of ceremonial things. We didn't have public performances. So the family halal that I took over, my Ohana halal, was specifically Ohana in there. And it was ceremonial practices, a lot of healing things, chanting when we needed rain. The Ohana would get together and do rain or wind chants, or depending on what it was, elemental things. And when I became the Kumu, I'd asked my kupuna, can I open it up to everybody, just to the general public? And she said, when you're the Kumu Hula, you have to make that decision. And you have to live with the decisions you make. Whether it's good, bad, or whatever it may be, that's your kuleana. And that's why I'm giving you this uniki, so you have the right to do that. I'm not going to be here to guide you.
Yeah.
Because, Tutu was 104, I think.
Wow.
So I made the decision to open up the halal. And I said, okay, the family halal has been always just family. I'm going to open it up because I think other people could benefit from all of our family history. I opened up the halal, and I think the first 40 students ended up being family.
Okay.
So in a way,
Still.
it's just like it was
Just
public.
a little bit more extended family.
Yeah, exactly. It was public, but it still all became family.
Yeah.
My father's family came. The other lines of the family came. So not necessarily the line that were Kumu Hula or the Hula side of the family, but
Yeah.
all my family came from everywhere.
Yeah.
And then the halal grew to over 100, and I want to say almost most of them still family. So I thought, okay, well, Tutu, it's still family.
Yeah.
So, we have about 6 classes now and close to 300 students.
Wow.
So, ranging from, I think our youngest was 2 into the 80s.
Wow.
So,
No, I want to join.
They come in Waimea every Monday and Wednesday.
We'll find a family connection,
Yes.
guarantee.
Yeah.
So 20 years of being a Kumu Hula, which is amazing. And then along the line, I know I read somewhere or I heard somewhere that your family also did kappa.
Oh, yeah.
And so that led to your starting your fashion.
My
line.
father's side of the family. So all of that is my mom's side, the hula
Okay.
and all of that. So my father's side, my father is, his family is Akiona from South Kona. And so his grandmother, Tutu Kale'eha Akiona, they were a couple people. And they were prolific lauhala weavers, actually. And, being raised in Waimea with lauhala trees. So I felt so bad that we couldn't perpetuate that practice because we didn't have lauhala trees. So we taught ourselves later on. All of my siblings and us, we said, it's in there. It's in our DNA. So once we start touching lauhala leaves, we'll know how to weave them because it's ancestral memories. It's the ancestral, traits that is passed down. We'll just remember where the wefts blow when we start weaving things. And so, and we became weavers, because of it. But the one thing that we could do was kappa to honor that side of the family because Tutu was kappa people. And so we grew our own wauke and it grows in our elevation in Waimea. And it was something we could do every day. So our family pounded kappa. We, my entire family would pound for the reinterment of Iwi Kupuna. So we've done it for what seems like most of my life.
What was that again?
The reinterment. So when when the missionaries came to Hawaii back in the day, they and all of their descendants eventually started to sort of sell off all of our bones, our iwi kupuna, our ancestral bones. So they would go into graves and rob the graves of all the Hawaiian things, take the bones. And if you look at some of the old advertisements, there was these. We still have them actually. These advertisements back in the 1800s, 1900s, early 1900s that says $10 for a skull, $5 for a femur.
What?
They were looking for bones for museums. And so, the Hawaiians knew, oh, don't touch that. Let it go. Let them be. They're put in the caves, wherever they be, let them rest. Well, the weirdest thing is most of the missionary grandkids were the ones who were doing it. Kids and grandkids. They were like, oh, they're gone and dead, their bones just became part of the earth, so they're free to take. So they were selling them to museums. And so there's like
some of them, it's like Hawaiian bones.
yeah, because we were so big, they wanted to compare them in the anthropology or the anthropological sense. They wanted to compare them to other people. They wanted to hold bones here and there. So hundreds to thousands of iwi were sold, or people gathered them. And we have writings, and we have manuscripts that say what happened and who took what where. And some of our family members became those like sort of reinterment leaders. And so my cousin Halelo Ha'ayao, he went and to all the museums and he petitions for all the iwi back, and he challenges them and he presents the history of where they were taken from, who took them, how they were gone, and then they have to give them back. Well, they don't have to, but if they were, they should. So most of the museums from Berlin to London to all these places all over the world that, you know, all these people, all these visitors came in the 1800s. When they went back, they took back all these feather capes and bones and things. They gave them back. So in this modern day, my cousin fought a lot for, and a whole hui of people fought to bring or return all the bones. So when they come back, what do? You have to bury them the way they were. You don't just find a hole and throw them in a hole.
Yeah.
Like they were taken hundreds of years ago. Most of them were ali'i, had to have been. You know, the majority of people were very, you know, they're royal families, and so they have to be wrapped in kapa in the old style. And so where do you get the kapa? Families like us had to beat them and pound them because people didn't know how to do it. It was a dying art. So when I was young, I learned to just harvest and pound out sheets of kapa. We never knew what happened to them, but they were donated to our cousins and our family members that did reinterments. That all the bones came back, they cleaned them, they wrapped them, they take them to caves or to burial grounds someplace and put them all back and have a ceremony to let them rest back where they're supposed to be. And so recently there was like 150 iwi that came back from London. So my family had to close the gates to our family house and spend a week locked in there pounding sheets as much as we could. Every last tree got cut down to beat out everything we could for the reinterment.
Wow.
And so it was something we just always did. And I mean, it wasn't until, okay, so I was raised doing this, kapa, you know, in the family. It wasn't until I read an article about like the last kapa makers. And it was the lady in Waimea. I read the article and I said, oh, I think she was one of my tutu's students. So my Auntie Malia Solomon became very famous in kapa. And I was like, I think she's probably my Auntie Malia's student. And so the article was about her like being the last, sort of like one of the last doing kapa. And I thought, oh, what about all of us? Like,
yeah, we just spent a week pounding kapa at home.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, and I thought, well, we never tell anybody we do this in the background. Like, we don't go to the family party like, oh yeah, we were just pounding kapa for all the dead bones that came back. You know, it's like, it's not like a conversational piece. So it just was a tradition. But I thought, oh, my poor grandparents, great grandparents, all of them who kept those traditions alive for all these thousands of years, all the way down to, so when modern fabrics came to Hawaii, then kapa stopped. Because now you can just get cotton and silk and whatever and make clothes out of that, because your kapa was your clothing. That was our only source of clothing at one time. And so it kind of stopped, but my family found it valuable enough that they kept doing it in some sort of form and passed it down to, we learned it.
Yeah.
You know, and then I thought, oh, look, everybody's getting recognition for being the last couple of people, but actually we're like the family that taught them.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, my poor great grandparents that never got any recognition. And I know them, they would be like, who the hell cares? Like, you don't need any recognition for this.
Well,
but then
even more than that, not just the recognition part, but then to go to people who have been doing it for generations, to continue the art, to teach it more, to like spread the knowledge out more.
And so I think it shifted when this is what happened. I came home, I told my parents, so I read in an article is selling their pieces to the hotel, and they make like these beautiful art pieces on the wall, they frame them, and they buy them for like $10,000. So to my parents, I think I'm gonna be a kapa artist. And so my parents was like, what the hell does that mean? I'm like, I think it means that we frame it and we decorate it and put it in frames and sell it to the hotel. And my mom, she's so funny, she says, that's like framing my panty. Would you take a panty and put it on the wall and sell it for $10,000? I said, well, if they're willing to buy the panty for $10,000, yes, I would sell it. She's like, kapa is clothing. Like, why? Like, you know, my family never looked at it as art. It was this is what our lole is. This is our clothes, and this is what we needed to wrap and have ceremony. When our family, when they were born, they would use the same kapa cloth to swaddle the baby to signify we all came from the same loins. And so we still have that kapa cloth for many, many, many generations. So my mom was just like, this is odd. Like, it's not art. This is like lole. Like, that's like taking your panty and framing it and putting it on the wall. I can still laugh about it today. My dad was like, oh, $10,000? Like, my mom is like, panties on the wall, what? My dad's like, $10,000? And so my dad's kind of the business mind, and so he goes, well, I mean, maybe you should try. I said, well, that's why I'm asking if I could have a blessing to maybe do this for art. I know we do it for bones, but can I do it for art? And they're like, try it out, see what happens. So I did it. I sold my first piece to the hotel for $10,000.
Wow.
And then I ended up selling it to private collectors. I started making pieces specific for their families. And I ended up selling hundreds of pieces to and then donating to Hawaiian families who I felt like needed it, or whenever Evie needed to be wrapped, we powdered the kapas. I started doing projects with the halal where I wanted them to make all of their hula attire out of kapa for the beginning stages, the way we do it, and have them put their own mana into their own pieces.
Wow.
Not have somebody else beat it for us. I said, if you're going to be in the front line, you're going to be in the performance line, you have to pound your own pa'u. And so to date, they probably have 2 or 3 pa'us that they have to pound, model underneath, everything. They've done it on in kapa. And so with that, it kind of domino or snowball effect into fashion.
Yeah, so you're trying to make something that was more wearable, like the modern day.
I told myself, I wonder if I can make this into a dress. And so I cut out the patterns as I would. My father taught us how to sew when we were young. My dad's a very, I guess, manly man. And so he was a policeman. He was the football coach. He was all these things that nobody knew. He was also the tailor at home that made my mom's holocaust. And he sewed all of our curtains and our pillows, our Halloween costumes.
I mean, that probably came from the line. That's his.
Totally. And so they didn't know that when they come over the house, like, wow, we love the drapes over here. I'm like, oh yeah, Dad made it. And they just laugh. You know, they're like, your dad made it? I'm like, yeah, he made all the cushions too. What? You know, so he taught us all from when we was young how to sew. All of my siblings, we all got a sewing machine. It was sort of like an uniki process, like with hula, but in sewing, learned to do straight lines, make scrunchies, and then pillows, and then start to make 8-line dresses, and then, you know, all of the shirts eventually, and then you got your sewing machine. It's like you uniki, and now you're the tailor, sort of. And so I thought, I wonder if I could do the same thing with kapa and cut out patterns, how we would do and sew a dress or a aloha shirt. And so me and my sister set out to do it. My sister was the best out of all of us, you know, tailor. She was a seamstress, really. And so I gave her some kapa and we cut it. She made a jumpsuit.
Oh.
And it was great. I mean, it looked more like linen. And I dyed it, and I did it all natural dyes from the plants. And some people noticed, some people didn't. They said, oh, it's a kind of a linen piece. And I said, oh, this kind of works. And so the people who realized it was kapa, they said, oh my gosh. And I stamped it with my ohe kapala in the kapa style.
Yeah.
People said, are you selling this? Can I order one? And so that's what kind of shifted. And I thought, maybe I wonder if I could, maybe I could put it into clothes. And so, and sell it. I realized then that I couldn't pound out a dress and sew a dress for every person. It would cost grands.
Yeah.
Like if I had to put a price tag on it, it took 3 years to grow the plant. I had to pound it out for a month. I had to decorate all this. You know, the piece itself would cost $10,000 just to make.
Right.
So I said, what if we just do the same thing but with modern fabric? What if I get kapa-ish fabric, like linen? Or if I got like sort of cottons that are like kapa, and I did the same designs on that, and we did clothes. And so we did. Me and my sister, I printed, and Auntie was involved as well. We printed a lot of fabric. We cut them and sold them into clothing. And then we got into the Merry Monarch Festival, and we were there for 20 years now. But we got into the festival and we started selling our pieces there, and it kind of took off. So that was around 2005, early 2000 actually. So our business license is 2005. So when you start making money, they got the taxes. So our GE tax license is 2005, but we probably started it closer to 2002, 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it just got bigger and bigger, and more, and just, yeah. It is what it is today.
And it is what it is. Well, and I love the origins of the brand, because then it came from like such a traditional place that I feel like it's rare to have a story like that, where it comes from like such a grounded, rooted place.
Yeah.
And you have the story, and I mean the designs today, I mean it's very modern, but it has that, you could tell that there's more to the story.
Yeah, there's an old story there.
Yeah.
And it really became about, so clothing in old Hawaii, they were it wasn't just for covering your body, but I think it was for empowering the body, or empowering the soul maybe of the wearer. So if you were in old Hawaii, you had to wear the colors that belonged to your family. So if you were like the shark clan, you would have possibly had gray colors to your kapa. So you couldn't just decide, I want to wear purple because it's pretty. Like that belonged to another family.
Really?
The Mo'o clans wore yellow. The Molokai clans that were for the Mo'o clan, they wore yellow. They couldn't just wear orange if they wanted to.
Wow.
They had to wear their clan color. And the lightning clans had the owl clans. We were called clans then tribes. And so all of the different clans, you had specific colors that you wore. If you were royal families, you wore the reds and the yellows. And so you couldn't just decide, oh, I want blue because that's pretty. That belonged to the ocean clans. As well as the markings and all the designs that were pounded into the kapa, the watermarks, as well as the stamping itself that told the story. You had to wear the stamps that would pertain to your family, and sort of like your family crest. And so you could identify by looking at people, oh, these people come from the mountains, and these people are from the ocean. And maybe I don't know their family name, but they're obviously the water clans or the fire clan. They belong to the Pele family. They're the shark people. These are the healers, or they belong to Lono. You could tell. And so during the time of Makahiki, when things were noai or free, that's when people brought out all the different colors. And I was like, oh, the laws were sort of reset in a way, or they were put on hold, and you could have fun and games and now be colorful. The word colorful kapa and different things. And so I wanted to keep that sort of mana'o in the clothes. I wanted people to know that the clothes were, the designs is what empowered that person, the wearer. You wore lightning bolt patterns on your clothes, then it empowered that. It's almost like a casting a good spell, I guess, in a way. That lightning bolts empowers the body to be strong, like the lightning,
Like a
and maybe
superhero costume
totally.
or something.
And that's the way Hawaiian clothes was. So we also didn't share our lole. Like in the olden days, when you were done, they burned all your kapa. It wasn't like you could give it to Salvation Army, because all your mana was in it. Not that we had a Salvation Army in old Hawaii, but all your mana was in that lole, in the clothes, that it went with you. It was yours. It girded your loins. It really had all of that mana. So I wanted that same mana'o, that the clothes that you get from me have that spiritual essence in them. That mana, the lightning patterns, or the patterns that represent the strong lizard clans that talk about succession and lineage and mo'okuauhau, all those kinds of things. I wanted people to be empowered when they wore the clothes. So I tried to keep that same kapa sense and put it into modern fashion.
Oh, that just like gave me chicken skin.
Well,
I didn't. Honestly, I've never heard of that before, about the colors and the designs, about that being part of your clan. Then I'm like,
Hawaii.
yeah, I'm like, maybe that's why certain people are drawn to certain colors or something.
My family is the Pele family. My last name Kamohoali'i comes from the Pele clan. And so even though Kamohoali'i is a shark god in the Pele family, his colors were gray. So our clan color is red because the fire clans were red. And Kamohoali'i wore a type of noni color that was red. And so we're kind of like the gray, red. I tell people we're the fire sharks. So we're like,
scary.
sort of, yeah.
Don't mess with the fire sharks.
And then my grandmother's family is from Molokai. And their Kihawahine is their family, Pe'erua. And so their color is yellow. They're the Mo'o clans. And so all of our couples were yellow. And people knew them when they saw the yellow. They said, oh, that's the Mo'o clan. That's those families. And they run into Ali'i families. They are the Ali'i families, actually. Most of the Mo'o clan families are royal families. And so yellow and red is the Ali'i colors.
So my great grandpa, he was a kahuna.
Ana.
His name was Grandpa Ka'ale,
Oh.
and
His last name was Kamu.
a kamu. And everybody's like, don't talk about him, don't talk about him. He was like black magic, did all this, like made people sick. So many of my cousins are named Ka'ale. And I'm
I
like,
love it.
why would you name? But then I was talking to Uncle Sani, Keolani. He was talking about how his family has kahunas and they do the same thing. But he was like, you know what though? If they can do the black magic and put curses on people, they could also heal people.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like a thing that people just didn't talk about because it's easier to talk about like the bad stuff.
I think, there was, so my tutu as well, my tutu was from Kohala and she was a kahuna anana. But, I asked my grandma, this is my grandma's grandma. So I asked my grandma because I think in the modern day, everybody just got afraid of it. They're so afraid of it, they just assumed it was bad.
Yeah.
So when they talked about her, they talked about it being like bad, like, oh, she was evil. So I told my grandma, you were raised by your grandma, right? She goes, yeah. I said, was she evil? She goes, oh, no. Grandma was so sweet. She took care of us. She, she cooked for us. We lived with her. And I said, so was she loving to you? Oh, she was very loving. I said, so how can anybody say that she was evil because she was a kahuna anana? She goes, oh, yeah, she was that too. I said, so I think to be evil, you would have to completely be an evil person.
Yeah.
So if your grandma was so loving to you all, then you know that what she did in the ana sense was kuleana to her family. I said every family had one that was the defender of their family. The one that, when there was threats that came to the family or there was curses that came to the family, somebody had to ward them off.
Oh, that just gave me chicken skin just now.
I was like, not meaning that they were evil. I
Yeah.
said, because your grandma, you said, she gave you guys all your names. She
Yeah.
raised all of you. And that was your loving grandma. So she was the kahuna anana of the family. But
Yeah.
all the great-grandkids who never knew her just said, oh, she was evil because she did that stuff. I said, I think they're wrong. So my grandma them said, yeah, you're right. That's what it was. So in our family, when we talked about it, the ones who didn't know, that were fearful, they
Yeah.
just assumed it was bad.
Yeah.
The ones, all of us that knew, and we had the conversations with our own grandparents, they said, no, that was necessary. Every family had one. So not necessarily meaning that they're bad, but they were sort of the defenders of the family. And so
I've always for years, I've always I feel protective over that. I didn't never met him, but I've always been you don't know. You don't
Yeah.
know what he was dealing with, and maybe there's two sides. And I'm it was during the time of the missionaries. Maybe the missionaries just said
Yeah,
oh, that's bad,
that's
and
bad.
wrote him off. And I'm
that's what happened to many family names. That's why all of our names changed. Was during that time. Especially the names. So I'm the only one that carries Kamohoali'i as my last name today because the missionaries had cut our name to Kama. So all of my grandparents and all the siblings, their all last name is Kama. And so, our last name is not even Kamohoali'i, it's Kamohoali'i. And so they couldn't cut it to Kamo because that wasn't a Hawaiian word. So they just changed it to Kama. And everybody just went for 2 generations as Kama. And so when I went through my uniki, my papa them, my tutu them said, you have to carry this name. This is the family name. And so they changed my name to Kamohoali'i, my last name. And I'm the only one in the family who carries it. And it really, a lot of things, we either judged it as being bad because it was the influence of the missionaries that had come and they had lack of knowledge and not knowing what it was. Or if you carry names like the Shark God's last name, we have the last name Pele in our family, then they all were changed. The family in Waimea, that their last name was Poliahu, their name changed to Kealoha.
wow.
Our family name became Kamuela, but their last name was Manoha o Kalani. All these strong names became just generics in a way. just maybe to appease the new religion that came.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and then all of our grandparents who were kahuna ana ana, who were defenders of their family, or the ones that had this old practice that took a lot of energy. Like out of all the practices, that one took a lot to have to conjure up fireballs or throw akualeles or to do those things. And they got disrespected in today's day where we just say, oh, they were evil.
Yeah.
Because
Right,
it was
right.
the missionaries, the lack of. They didn't know, so they said, they're evil. They're just evil.
Yeah.
But, you know, in everything that we do that's Hawaiian, there's a balance.
Yeah.
And that's the word pono. Pono is balance. There's a yin and a yang of balance. If you went and learned how to do lua, you learned how to do martial arts and break all the bones, you were also taught how to mend all the bones. Because if you broke them, you had to fix them. You couldn't just, that was the balance of ku and hina. That was how
Light and
a
dark.
Hawaiian became. So the unbalanced is all the ones you see that end up in the prisons because they don't have enough hina to their ku. They're all strong, but not enough compassion on the other side. And so the Hawaiian practice was to practice both, to be able to have both ku and hina, that masculinity and that femininity all at the same time, and to encompass all of it in one. And so if you had that sort of ana, then you also had to have the opposite of what cursing was. It was also, healing. Healing. So you had to have the both, and the balance of it, and understand both of it. You couldn't just be all one.
And it's just like modern day. Like everybody has like a dark side to them.
Yep.
There's like always like this balance between like dark and light. And, sometimes people make mistakes and like, but it doesn't make them bad,
Yeah,
know? And so it's like we still like live in this like balance of
Yeah.
light and dark, good and
Yeah.
bad and all that stuff. And
And
so
everything that we do, if we balance, then it's successful. And so that's something, our kupuna was just experts in everything, the way that they live their lives, and they knew how to balance very, very well. So it's sad it's the lack of understanding or the fear and of not knowing that we just said, oh, they were black magic people. I don't think magic was black or white. That we just said, oh, they did dark things.
yeah.
And so it was the fear of,
Yeah. No, but in my family, for sure, people would be like, don't talk about it. Don't talk about it.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I went through that.
yeah. And so I'm like curious, like, wait, what is that? Like, what would he do? Like, tell me about what he did. And then it was only until talking about Uncle Sonny, he was like, well, if he knew how to do that, he would know how to heal.
Yeah.
So there's two sides of that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, so that was fine. Like the first time I was like, well, maybe he was misunderstood by
Yeah.
everybody else or something.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. When it comes to kahuna ana, like what were the things that they were like most well known for?
They were the ones that, the practice of ana was, a lot of times they had conjured up what we called a kualele, where they're sort of like fireballs, and they would call the genealogy. So I was being raised as a kahuna ana from a little kid. They were the ones that chanted the genealogy and called all the ancestral names to awaken, and the bones. That's what our tutu used to do, was call all the bones to awaken. And they would conjure up this sort of like big, maybe curse, I guess, and send it to somebody. And in our sense, our kupuna, my kupuna, I remember my grandmother saying that her grandma was so loving and kind, but if you stepped on her toes, she came back full force at you. Like if you pissed her off in the wrong way and you came for her family, she came fireballs
I
at
know
you.
tutus like that.
Yeah, totally. So she came
Do
with
not
fireballs.
to get on the bad side.
Exactly. And so, they learned healing as well, but they were the ones that sent more of the heavier curses to protect their family. So my grandma in Molokai, or the family on Molokai, I remember when I was really young going to Molokai and seeing my tutus on that side. That's the first time I ever saw a fireball. And
Oh,
it
you
flew
actually
across.
saw actual fire.
Yeah, so it has like this sort of centipede tail. It looks like this like blue tail with a like sort of a white ball of fire. And so I was sitting outside in Kalama'ula and kind of watching the ocean, and then I saw these I was like, oh, fireworks. I thought, or a shooting star. It kind of flew over to one side of the bay to where that family was, and then I saw it fly back, and then I saw it fly back again, and I thought, what the hell's going on? So I went and I called my grandma. I was like, Grandma, look, there's all. She goes, oh, those guys. And I'm like, what? She goes, they're fighting again. They're always fighting, those two witches. And like, it was like nothing. And I was like, what? Like, are you see what I see? He goes, yeah. The sister Akualeles, And I'm like, what? So that I learned it from a very young child because she has explained to me that them two, they always have this rift back and forth. So they make all this curse and send it to that family, and then that family would defend themselves and throw it back. And so until somebody dies, they're like just gonna do it until somebody dies. I'm like,
Oh, wow.
wow. And so Molokai was so old like that for me, and I treasured going to Molokai every summer. Every chance I got a break, I would go see the family of Molokai, and I treasured it because I felt like, oh, this is old Hawaii.
Yeah.
They're still throwing fireballs at each other. Not so much today, but there was no traffic lights in town. It was very undeveloped, and it was still old Hawaiian intact, I felt. And so
Yeah, same. The traditions and practices and all that was
exactly. So
alive.
and my grandmother's like, oh, they're still fighting those ladies. Like no big deal. I think if you're in a city, they're like, what the hell is happening? So it was like no big. Oh, they're just throwing fireballs. Like,
Because there's different kind of kahuna, right? There's kahuna
Yeah.
and anan. There's like
so
kahuna that
kahuna
would
is
use-
the term for like expert. So kahuna or loea, those are like terms for experts in their field. And depends on what it is. You have olohe is another term for expert. Depends on what you are sort of the kahuna in. So I feel like kahuna is the term for more scientific things or
like la'al
like-
pa'al.
yeah, or for like stargazing, or for reading omens in the sky, or maybe being this one that's throwing fireballs for curses, or healing and medicine, like all those kind of things is kahuna. You get those terms. Like if you're a kahuna in martial arts, you're called an olohe. If you're a kahuna in hula, you're called a kumu hula. A kumu, the source of it. So there's different terms, but kahuna is kind of like the sort of like science and arts, sort of.
Maybe related to nature.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, all those kind of things. So you can be like kahuna of the ocean, of fishing, of all those kind of practices, mountain practices. You could be the one who gathers all the bird feathers and all that, be kahuna. So it's very broad in that way, but it does reference being an expert to the highest power to being. And then so the kahunas that were in the courts of the old Hawaii were kahuna nui. So they were kind of like, they knew a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
or they knew everything.
Yeah.
They were like the overall sort of general doctor of everything.
The go-to
Yeah.
person. Yeah.
They knew how to do it all. So they were the
Kahuna
kahuna nui. And those are the ones that were sort of employed by the ali'i. They're the ones that foretold what would happen, or the main guys that were next to the ali'i that made the decisions.
Yeah.
Usually it was family. So
Yeah. I wonder, are they still around in
I-
like
I-
quiet spaces around Hawaii?
I feel like there is families like ours, that we know these practices, we still perpetuate these practices. We wouldn't walk around and tell people we're kahuna because it's
Yeah.
kind of advantageous to just assume we know everything.
Right.
But and so when people so I know right away when somebody goes, "Oh, I'm a kahuna," I think to myself, "Oh my gosh, you must not be a kahuna, because a real kahuna is not going to just be like, I'm a kahuna."
Yeah, right,
you know?
right.
But you can tell the ones that are kahuna and kahuna status, the Hawaiian practitioners that have that sort of level of ike, or that level of knowledge, and and they're humble about it. They're not going to come out and, I mean, I guess we say we're Kumu Hula today. And that's just,
Yeah.
it's different because so people are using the term loea more now for Kumu Hula, because I feel like they're trying to separate the everyday Kumu Hula from the hula master.
Yeah.
Because now every time Dick and Harry's a Kumu Hula. And like, you go to Japan, everybody's a Kumu Hula over there. I'm like, oh gosh. And then I think to myself, you can't be a Kumu Hula like me, because like we're not of the same sort of level of knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you all the weather patterns and all the plants in the mountains and what dyes come from what, and pound out the garments, and I can tell you every animal and what's the name of the winds and the rains that are around, and you teach in Japan. Like, how does that compare to my Kumu Hula? So like, okay, so that's why now today they're using the term like loea
Okay,
to
yeah.
differentiate. But to me, loea is more of a skillful thing. You're an expert in some sort of skill, like and I guess hula could be a skill, but it's because our term Kumu Hula is losing its weight as
'Cause there's
Kumu
so
Hula.
many.
Before, when you was a Kumu Hula, it was like, oh, that's a Kumu Hula.
Yeah.
Now it's like
there was a rigorous training like you had to go through. Like, the
exactly.
Iniki
You had to go
process.
all of that, and then you became Kumu Hula. So it's like, oh, there's a Kumu Hula here. Now it's like, oh, he's a Kumu Hula, and somebody goes, oh, my brother's a Kumu Hula, my auntie's a Kumu Hula, my sister, my neighbor, everybody's a Kumu Hula nowadays. It's like sort of lost its weight, and
Yeah.
like everybody's like, oh, I know people in Germany, they're Kumu Hulas. Like, oh my god. So I guess
Never
in a
been
way,
to Hawaii, but Kumu
yeah,
Hula.
exactly. From YouTube, you know. So I guess we have to be loyal. I guess that's where the term started to
Yeah.
come in because, yeah, but.
Yeah. Okay, so I have two more things. So now that we're in 2024, is there anything you're looking forward to this year? I mean, I know you're celebrating 20 years
Oh
with
gosh.
your halal and
Well, our fashion, I didn't finish the fashion part. Wait. So we, when I initially got invited into Fashion Week,
Yeah.
I didn't want to go. I was like, that's okay. Then I thought about it, which was Fashion Week in New York. I thought about it, and this is where it changed when my dad told me, why would you do this? I said, Dad, hey, we got invited to New York Fashion Week. He's like, oh, congratulations. My mom's like, yay. And then a second later, they're like, what is New York Fashion Week? And I was like,
Yeah.
that's the one on the TV, the one that they're the big fashion shows, you know? And then Dad goes, the one that they're like all mad and they're like walking on the runways and they look all pissed off and they're hungry. Like,
and hungry.
just so skinny. And I said, yeah, Dad, that's the one. He goes, oh, why the hell would you do that? I was like, oh, I don't know. That's the thing. Like, you know, that's like the pinnacle of the fashion designer's career is to make it to New York Fashion. He said, okay, well, is that what you want to do? I said, no, I don't know. He said, okay, answer me this. If you was to do it, why would you do New York Fashion Week? What's the point? Why would you do New York Fashion Week? You tell me the answer and I'll tell you if I'm going to help you get there or not. I said, okay. So I just took a deep breath and my response to him was, I would do New York Fashion Week to be able to set a path for others that wanted to go. I would do it to be able to show the rest of the world that our fashion parallels all of theirs. And if not, it supersedes their fashion because ours is spiritually connected to something that matters. It's connected to culture and story, and it's connected to a people in the middle of the Pacific, and it's connected to power and to grace and to all these things. And all of that is just put in one shirt. I'm like,
Yeah.
I said, I would show them that fashion is just not rags you wear one time to an event and throw it away. That fashion is the thing that swallows your body and empowers your soul. And so, and at the same
That's a good
time,
answer.
I told her, at the same time, I want to make Hawaii proud. I want Hawaii to know that we are just as good as everybody else in the world. That we don't have to save our money to buy Louis Vuitton or Versace. That we can save our money to buy a Kamohoali'i. That's only $79. But you know, that we can wear our own and be proud of our own fashion. And so he said, sounds good to me. Let's raise the money. Because we had 4 weeks to do it. And we
'Cause you
needed
had to take
$100,000 to go.
What?
By the time we looked at the flights, it was ridiculous. The hotels, it was a month away. They said, we have one spot left. We wanted to offer it to you. And so I called them back and I said, okay, you know what? I'll take it. We're going to come. And I said, but I need to bring my own models. And they said, do whatever you want to do. I said, I want to bring my own models.
Designers usually go and just you have
You
models
use the
to
models
pick
there.
from.
They have
I see.
big fashion models there, and then they'll use them. So I told them, it's important to me that I bring my own people because I want my people to see our people on the TV, on the stage.
Yeah.
I want the rest of the world to see Hawaiians modeling. I want them to see what humanity looks like because I'm going to bring my family.
Yeah.
And at every size that they are.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask them to go on a diet.
Yeah.
We'll have 4 weeks. And so I'm like, I'm going to bring them tall, short, fat, skinny, whatever they are. They're coming. We're going to honor our people.
That's awesome.
And so
But that's expensive.
it was expensive. So
Yeah.
it cost us about $100,000 to do
Wow.
it. And it was because the flights itself was about $40,000.
Wow.
The hotel was about $40,000. You know, all the transportations that we needed to get around, to all the things that we needed to do while we were there for that whole week was the photo shoots, the as well as New York Fashion Week or all the fashion weeks, it's like a pay for play. So you have to pay to be on that runway. And what they do in turn for you paying is they bring all the magazines, all the publications, all the buyers
Oh, the
to your show.
exposure is insane.
And they bring all the buyers so that all the like Macy's or Walmart or whoever it may be, they'll come and they might like something and then they'll approach you and say, I want to buy that dress for all my 7,000 stores, you know, or whatever it may be. So we set out, we did it. We raised all the funds within that month. We got it all booked. We went and I think the heart and soul of this story is this. I had no clothes because we just finished like a big sale. We did like a Merry Monarch sale, it was the year that didn't have Merry Monarch.
Yeah.
It was, I think, televised, but it didn't have the craft fair.
Yeah.
So, and it was in like July. So we did it all in July, and then we sold everything we had. We had no clothes. And so I was like all gun-ho, yes, we're going to do this for our people. And then I thought, oh my God, we don't even have any clothes. What are we going to do? I'm like,
No inventory.
yeah, I was like, I'm going to have to start sewing things in 4 weeks. Like,
Oh my
gosh, I have to get fabric. I have to print it. I have to like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So my cousin Stallone, think fast. He goes, I got it. Just you plan the things. I got it. I'm like, you don't sew? Like, what are you going to do? He's like, never mind. He put a text out to like the whole town and said, if you bought anything from Kumu, please bring it back. We want to see it. We're going to Fashion Week and we need to borrow it.
Oh my gosh,
So-
that just gave me chicken skin.
It was amazing. I mean, it was amazing that, look, it's bringing tears to my eyes, but it was amazing how everybody came with their suitcases and said, oh, I bought all this from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I bought this last year. If you can use any of this, you can take it. So I picked from
my
everybody's
gosh,
suitcase
wow.
all the clothes that they already bought from us years ago. So I picked out different pieces. I said, oh my God, this is great. Oh, I forgot about this. This is great. I love this piece. So I picked it all out. I marked out whose pieces was what, and then we used them. That's what we showed at New York Fashion Week was the whole town's clothes, really. And
That's so crazy.
It was great. So and then people was like, I need to buy that dress, and I was like, sorry, somebody bought it 5 years ago. Like, I gotta return it to the owners. Like, this is not, it's not for sale.
It's kind
I'm
of
sorry.
a one of a kind at
Yeah,
this point.
I didn't want to tell them tell them the whole story. I said, oh, this is just our collection. That this is it's not
It's
for
a
sale.
lookbook.
Yeah, that's what we told them. But
Wow.
that's what I think New York was powerful and impactful because it really took the whole community to do New York Fashion Week.
Yeah.
And my plan was to just sort of open the doors for other fashion designers that maybe had a dream to do it. It wasn't my dream and it wasn't my goal. It became my dream and goal, but it wasn't mine initially. And I said,
Yeah.
if I can open that door for others to go, then great. They're gonna take us seriously now.
Yeah.
So we ended up with a standing ovation. We were the feature on Friday night. So we were the main event. They moved us. There was so much media pushing. There's so much attention in the media about us. We ended up in the New York media. I mean, I felt like wherever we went, people in New York was like, oh, that's the Hawaiian designers.
Well,
That's
and you guys were
their
the
clothes."
first Hawaiian designer up there.
In the official Fashion Week.
Yeah.
So I guess other people has gone before, but the difference was other people that went, they just threw a fashion show on the side.
Yeah.
They didn't actually do it in the main like fashion New York Fashion Week. So it ended up everywhere. I mean, New York One, the news station came down, did these big interviews. All the magazines were doing interviews. So it ended up moving us to the opening of like the Thursday show to like the main event on Friday. Like we were the center of the whole show. And the producers were like, wow, you're getting so much traction. We're moving you. You're the main event. I'm like, oh,
Wow.
okay. I also told them, I said, I don't know if you guys do this in Fashion Week, but I need to have an extra 5 minutes. And they were like, no, we don't give anybody extra 5 minutes. It's because everybody gets 10 minutes. That's it.
Yeah.
And I told them, and this is why. I said, I'm presenting not just fashion, but where our fashion comes from. And my fashion comes from centuries and centuries of traditions of Native people and how they clothe themselves with bark from a tree. And I can't just, I said, if I was to just show up with that clothes, people wouldn't understand. I need to set a preface for people to know that I am part of the fabric creators of the world. I said the difference with fashion is people just cut things up and sew it together and create a garment, and that's a fashion designer. I'm a fabric creator. I'm part of the fabric creators of the world, and we're very few of us that we took plants and created the fabric that these designers put into clothing.
Yeah.
I said, I'm the beginning of it all. And before even Fashion Week ever was in existence or fashion itself, I'm the beginning of it. And I need to explain that to the audience that is watching, the buyers, that this is original fabrics and all this whole story. And they were like just floored. So they said, you got it. How much you need? I said, just 5 minutes, really. I need to present my culture and my and the preface of who we are. They said, okay. I said, I really just need 3, I think. I can do it in 3. They didn't want to, like, overstep. So they said, we'll give you 5. So we pounded kappa on the stage. We did a whole dramatic, like, opening for it. When the first looks came out, people was screaming. I was in the back. I did the opening. I went to the back. And then I could hear them screaming like they were at a football game. And I told one of the producers in the back, oh my God, are they okay? Did somebody fall? Like, what's going on? Because all the designers, we watched like a whole show the day before. They just clap like this with their fingers. They snap. That's it. They don't do this. They just go like this.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to throw people off.
Yeah.
So when we came out, they're like screaming like a football game. I thought somebody got hurt. They're like, yes! It was like nuts. And I looked at the camera. People was like standing up, going like this. And I thought, oh, we unleashed a Kraken somehow. And so the producer in the back goes, they love you guys so much. I've never saw this. Like, people are going nuts. I'm like, we just started. Wait till the end. Like, we broke out into a dramatic hula at the end. It was impromptu. Of course, we knew what we was doing, but it looked like it was impromptu. So the dancer, or the last look came out, and then they just started dancing at the end. And people just started crying. When we finished, everybody stood up. It was a standing ovation. People was emotional. And, I brought my cousins that are musicians, Emmy-Award. She came, and so she was throwing it down on the stage. And it just really just was a whole thing. We ended up in 30 publications. The next day, we were in Forbes. We were in Vanity Fair and Vogue. We ended up in iFashion and all the Hawaii magazines, but all the magazines that I've never even heard of that's up there, we were in them all. And
just doing what you do, just doing what you always do, have always done.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
I think when people saw people that look like them on the runway, so our film crew was there capturing everything, and you saw these Popolo ladies that was sitting there. They saw my auntie come out, my auntie Nita Pilago. She's Wahine Toa Designs. When she came out, they looked at her and they said, wow, you could see it in their face. She had gray hair, short hair. Yeah. She's darker colored complexion. She kind of looks like them. Yeah. And she was a queen. She came out like with that dress, like she was like the ali'i. And they just stood up when she walked out, and they was like giving these real like, and they were loving it. You could see that people saw themselves in our people. They saw chubby girls and said, that's me. Oh my God, I could wear that. I can be this. Yeah. I mean, and that was, I said, I want to give people hope. I want to give people reality. I want to show what you really look like and what you can look like. I don't want to give them a facade that we're all 5'11" and we're starving. Yeah. Like, I want them to see real life, realistic lifestyle.
I love that.
And I think that's what got us so far. Yeah. From there, it ended up getting us into the rest of Europe. It got us into London, Milan, and Paris, and a huge whirlwind tour, 1-month tour with 40 people. That was nuts.
Wow.
At the Queen's funeral, we ended up at the Queen's funeral in London.
So crazy with
all kinds of things.
You're just dressed like you're at a royal, like a Hawaiian ali'i.
Totally. We had concerts. We did all kinds of things. We produced all kinds of things in film, and we did all these specials that aired on TV and aired nationwide, some of it. We got nominated for an Emmy. We won an Emmy.
Crazy.
all kinds of stuff.
What a whirlwind. Yeah. Have you had any, like, along the way, like, any kind of, like, Hawaii Lona or, like, any kind of signs that you're, like, from your kupuna that makes you feel like, all right, I'm, like, doing good. Like, I'm on the right path here. Like,
yeah,
I'm doing the thing.
I think too many to count. Like, things just started lining up one after another, happening and just moving. And I was trained from the beginning of my life to listen to my kupuna. I mean, we started off this podcast with me calling in the ancestors, with me being the funeral caller, I guess. And so that's something that was the foundation of my whole life. So I've always looked for or I've always been led by the Hawaii Lona that are leading me from the next place to the next. And so, and they just line up sort of, and we just go. I have complete trust in my family genealogy and my family line. And we're like, okay, now it's time to open a store, I guess. So we opened the store. Now it's time to go to London. Like, we just...
It's almost like when you're little and you're saying that you really just like have just gone along with like what you're
voluntold, yeah.
Voluntold. You're still being voluntold, but from the kupuna.
Yeah, exactly. There's like a higher power now
Yes.
that's telling us you have to do this. And
Yeah.
so, and what's amazing is that my whole family's on the same like va'a as me. So, we have to raise the money to go to some big place. I'm like, oh gosh, here we are again. We have 1 month to raise all this money to try and do it. And it happens in 1 week. Like it all just comes in. Europe was 250,000 to try and get like those flights was expensive and the hotels was expensive. We were just to get us all housed and be on trains and be on the buses and whatever it was. But we did it. Our kupuna made it happen.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Okay, 2 more questions. Back to the what you're looking forward to most in this year that we're in 2024. Anything exciting coming up for you?
We were invited to every fashion week that there is around the world, and I didn't even know there was so much around the world. But we got invited to Dubai Fashion Week.
Wow.
We got invited to Sydney Fashion Week, and this past October we were invited to Portland Fashion Week, which when they called me, they actually came down. They flew down to meet with me in person and asked me to headline Portland Fashion Week. And my response to them was, I never even heard of you. I told them, Portland Fashion Week, what is that? So then I read about them. I saw them in Forbes. They were actually in the article, the page right before me.
Oh.
There was like my photo in there and like this whole thing about us being, this whole fashion thing. And then the page right before was like one of the top fashion stages in the world was Portland Fashion Week. And I thought,
no idea.
Wow, I had no clue. And so we went. I said yes. And here we go, 4 weeks again. I think we had 5 this time. 5 weeks in was like, okay, let's pull this off. And I said, let's do something crazy. Like we always show lifestyle and we show real people. Let's go wild and put all the things in the hair like the crazy people do that I said I would never.
Yeah.
Like all the designers that have like the whole kitchen sink in the head and then and they're only showing the purse, really. They're modeling the purse, but it has all of this. And so I thought, oh, so crazy. So let's do it. That's so avant-garde, let's do it. We did it. We told the story of Pele, Poliahu, and Kihawahine, the 3 female goddesses, and then the clotheslines that followed, or what inspired to be the clothes the collection of their, our collection that honored them. And we did it. We did it in Portland. We brought down the house. It was crazy. It's very artistic in Portland, and so I felt like we was doing something out of the ordinary, but most of them came to the fashion show looking like that. So like that's just the culture of Oregon, I guess. And it was great. It was fabulous. I think what was so great about it was we told the stories. We linked in with the Native Americans, and we put some of them on our runway, and we kind of told their stories within telling ours.
Yeah.
And so now we're producing. So this year we're finalizing and finishing our 1-hour special of Portland Fashion Week, which would tell the story of the Native Hawaiians during the time of Kamehameha that went to Oregon during the Hudson Bay Trading Company and the whole North Pacific Northwest, and how they worked there on that trading company, eventually married the Native Americans, and then started like tribes. And so it went from 12 Native Hawaiians being sent out to eventually the communities of 400 Hawaiians that married Native American princesses and became part of these tribes.
Wow.
So what was so amazing was we went and researched genealogy to find the descendants of John Kalama, who found out that there's a Kalama City that's named after him.
Wow.
There's a whole town named after him. Kalama Falls, Kalama River. There's a river called Oahe River named after the Hawaiians. There's even a town called Aloha, Oregon, that's named after the Hawaiians there. Some of them, there's some, discrepancies here and there from some of the old timers there and then the ones and the Hawaiians. But, just that the story of the Native Native Hawaiians living on that land and reshaping the land.
Yeah. Which is so relevant to
Totally.
today.
And we ended up meeting the descendants of John Kalama. We interviewed them. And
Wow.
so amazing. Their great-great-grandfather was pure Hawaiian, John Kalama, but they know nothing about Hawaii. They are the tribal leaders in the Native American country. So they run the Nisqually. They're enrolled Nisqually Native Americans. They're Native Americans. And yeah, I mean, it was amazing. We interviewed them, and I asked them, how does it feel to be like double Native? You're Native Hawaiian and Native
Yeah.
American. They said, well, I only know how to be Native American. I know nothing about being Hawaiian.
Come
I've
to
never,
Hawaii.
yeah, they're like,
Yeah, they
you know,
gotta come
but
here.
they're the descendants of Hawaiians that went and made their home there, you know,
Yeah.
and telling their story and how all the landscape retained the names of all
Yeah.
these places. Yeah, I mean, just
Wow.
amazing. So we're
So now
telling
you
that.
add filmmaker to your title too. One more thing.
So we're now creating that special and telling all their stories within fashion
love it.
and how it all just kind of so filmmaking.
Yeah.
We
Oh, I
were
love
looking
it.
to go to Sydney Fashion Week this year, but so I ended up going down at the ending of last year to Sydney. They asked me to come and do a mini fashion show for them and to do different things down there. We were talking on the news about Hawaii, about fashion, about Hawaii tourism, and all kinds of stuff. And it was fabulous. So I told them I'll see you at Sydney Fashion Week, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of exhausted.
It's a lot of energy,
I
a lot
think-
of work, a lot of
Yeah.
coordination.
So maybe we'll see if it
Yeah.
happens. But my passion really is telling the story of the Native Americans and the Native Hawaiians.
That's
I'm like,
really cool.
when I met them, I felt like I met my family that I never met before. But it was almost like an instant, like, oh my gosh, we're connected. It felt like we were
Familiar.
totally.
Yeah.
And different tribes. I've met so much Native American, Native Hawaiian mix people and tribes that come from all these different tribes all over there. So, John Kalama ended up with he had one son, Peter, and Peter ended up with 22 kids.
Wow.
So they're like all the Native tribes on that side.
But their kids are a quarter Hawaiian.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And there's many other Hawaiians that went over there. Joe Friday was another one. Po'ali was his name, and his family is part of sort of the northern tribes and the Alaskans, but they're Native Hawaiians as well. So much story to tell and how they shape the landscape, how Hawaiians reshape the landscape.
I love it. You're hitting on my passion now, with storytelling and film, and
I
there's
love it.
so many stories to tell.
Maybe
And
we'll have to tell a story together.
let's do it. I know my thing is kupuna stories and capturing that while we can.
Yep.
But yeah, there's so many out there. I'm we need more storytellers, more
Yep.
filmmakers to be capturing those kupuna stories.
Exactly.
Oh, so good. I feel like I could talk to you forever. Last question. If you could talk to anybody, sit down and have a conversation with anybody, past or present, who would that be?
Oh, I feel like I've done this question many times, and I feel like I've had different answers for everyone. And I feel like at one time I told myself I would sit down with Queen Lili'uokalani and ask her some questions and tell her why we didn't fight. I mean, I understand we were trying to save our people, but if I could have shown them what would have happened, what had happened to us, would she had reacted differently? I feel like if I sat down with Kamehameha and I told him, this is what happened to us, and this is the changes that took effect because of it. This is what dominoed from it, And sometimes I feel like I would just sit down with my grandmother just to have some extra time with her and ask her maybe adult questions now.
Yeah.
The things that you don't ask your grandparents. But now that we're full adults and we know how life is, I feel like I would ask her those simple questions about life and the decisions she made that affected us. So I don't know. That's a really good one, but
Yeah.
I feel like all
Those
of
are
that.
all good.
I
Those
would.
are all good
I think
answers.
wanting to know why they chose those paths. I mean, I know that it is what it is, and you can't change it. But I think sometimes I feel like I would like to know why they decided to go that way, and how it. Look at how it affected everything and the lives that we have. Yeah.
That's good. I know. It's good to think about. I'm the same. I'm like, my answer keeps changing all the time too. But I never thought about like Liliuokalani would be powerful.
You know, she made the decision to not fight and tell her people
Yeah.
to stand down. And yes, because I think she had thought in her mind that America would set it right when she saw the president and he would say, "Oh, what are you guys doing? Give it back."
Yeah.
And as well as I don't think she wanted anybody to die, you know, her people. But if you look at our people now, the struggles that we've had over since the overthrow, I think it's worth dying for, you know, to sort of take out some of these struggles we had. And I'm sure if you was to ask people today, they would all give their lives to fight for something, you know, fight for the cause. And so I wondered that. I said I would ask her, you know, if she saw the outcome becoming this, would she had made different choices and told them, you know, they had the guards, they had the royal guards, and they could have in some sort of way, if she commanded them to just off with your head. I feel like she could have been like, kill them.
Yep.
You know, all the provisional government that came, or the dole or whoever it was, you know, that was leading this whole overthrow. There was enough of them that she could have just said, just kill them and just get it over with.
Yeah.
But you know, I think she wanted to go the legal route and say that these countries will set it all right.
Yeah. Hoping for the best.
Yeah, that would be a nice, interesting conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah.
Well, to end it.
Thank you for having me.
No, I feel like I could honestly like talk to you for another hour. I'm just so all the things that your experiences and your knowledge and all the things that you do and all the things that you will do, I think is like very, very inspiring. And I love getting your voices like yours, like elevated, you know, like inspiring other people to go out and like,
Thank you.
You know, do the things that are unconventional that people don't do, to like dig back into your like mo'oku auhau. Think about your like kupuna and like what they would have wanted you to do, what they would have volunteered you to do.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so I'm always like amazed by the things that you do. So thank you for being a light.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I tell people to just listen, you know, find the time to reconnect to their Hawaiian soul and then empower. You know, that's kind of like, without those words being told to me, that's the way I was raised, was like, listen to you know, your ancestors and all the things, your life and the things that play out, and voluntold, I guess, but you just do it. And then not only are you empowering your ohana, but in that same way you empower the rest of your nation. And so, yeah, holomua.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you.
Mahalo.
You can find Micah on Instagram, Dezigns with a Z by Kamohoali'i, Kumu Micah Kamohoali'i. And what's the website? Designs by Kamohoali'i.com?
dbkamohoali'i.com.
Okay. Follow along for all the exciting updates. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for following, subscribing, sharing, and we'll see you next week. Aloha.
Aloha.